So you can continue the session, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Hi guys, good evening. Let's get started for today's session. Let me share my screen. Can you all see my screen? Okay, thank you. Yeah, let's get started. So till yesterday, so we saw the basics of React and what are all the necessary topics that are with respect to React. Okay. So today I told you, right. So in the next 2 days we will be seeing some advanced concepts in React. So you might need to use these concepts or you may not, but you need to know what are those concepts. Okay. So let's get started for today's session. And yeah, okay. So the topics for today is we'll be going over with references. Then we will be seeing what is a pure component, and then we will be using something called type checking. Okay, so these three concepts that I'm going to cover today. And there is no power here. Okay, so I have a very little charge. So if it gets disconnected, and you can assume that I don't have charge here. Okay, so you need not join again. So I'll try to cover these things. Okay, I can manage with this charge. Okay, so let's see. So that's why I'm not going to ask you to demo today. Okay, we'll have it tomorrow, and you can share your insights on the demos tomorrow. Okay, so let's get started. Yeah, what is references? So that is the first topic for today. So references is nothing but you have something called document.get element by ID and document.get element by class. Okay, so you have something to identify a particular element, right? For example, for an input, okay, and you have some ID to it. And if you want to access those values in that particular input, okay, what you'll need to do in the case of your JavaScript, you need to use something called document.get element by ID of that particular thing. Okay. Same way in React, okay, we have something called references. Okay. So references are nothing but it's a unique thing, unique identifier that you are going to apply to a particular element. Using that identifier, you can access those properties of the particular element that you have in that you have in the references. Okay, so let's get started how to do that, and we'll see it. So I'll create a component. Okay, that is something called counter.js. Okay, so basic component here, and I'm going to use my class component. So React, because I'm going to make use of state. You can even use state. I'm going to show you the both example. Okay, so React, and okay, I don't need this. So class counter extends React dot component. Okay, so basic class component. Okay, so here in the constructor I will have a state called count. Okay, so basically, and in the render function I'll have that. So we already saw this example. I'm just displaying again. So I usually use this example to explain concepts. So this dot state dot count. Okay, I'm just displaying the count, and I'm going to have a button, and it's going to be increment as you assume here, increment, decrement, and reset, and it's going to be reset here. And on tick, what I will have, so basically I will have an increment function, right? So I'm going to do the same increment. Okay, so the same applies here, same applies here. Okay, so increment, and I will have decrement, and I will have a reset function. Okay, so what I'll do is whenever I click on increment button, I'm going to call my increment function. Same applies to your decrement and reset as well. Okay, so increment this dot state, this dot set state, and if you want to increment the value, you need to give something called count this dot state dot count plus 1. Okay, so basic example. Same applies to your decrement, same applies for your reset. So decrement, it's going to be -1, and reset, it's going to be directly 0. Okay, so basic component here: increment, decrement, reset, and other thing. Okay, so I need to export. I'll have it here itself. So export default plus. Okay, so I just exported, and now a normal component here. I'm going to use this component in my app.js. I'll go over here. I just import counter component here. Okay, so I'll run the application first. Okay, so this is the application that we had yesterday. Okay, so I'm going to add one more thing called counter component, which I created here. Okay, I will have it here directly. So somewhere below your here. Okay, I will have it here. So I have my counter component here. So if I do increment, decrement, reset, and it works as expected. Okay, no changes here. So now you have counter component here. Okay, and also I will add something called an input, something like this. Okay, so this let this example be there. Okay, I will show you an example. Input type text. Okay, so if I want to access this element, this is an input element. Okay, so in the case of normal JavaScript, what you would do, you will have an ID. Okay, so something like a test. Okay, so when you want to access that particular ID, what you will do, you will have something called document.get element by ID, and that particular ID here. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to have the same here and add one more button. Okay, something like click me. Okay, so click me, and I will have a function. So this is going to be okay. So on click, okay, I'm going to have a function, something like click me. Okay, so what I did here is, see, I need to click, I need to create a function here first. So const click me, and I'm going to have it as a function, right? So I'll just console it here. Okay, so console.log of clicked. Okay, so some basic thing. Okay, so if it is confusing for you, I will comment these things. I will have necessary things alone. So I have an input text box, and I have a button. When I click on the particular button, I just call my click me function. Okay, so nothing other than that. I just had a click me function here. I just consoled it. I have a button called click me, and whenever I click on that, click me will be called. Okay, so I got my things here. So if I do increment and this particular counter application will work as in this particular component here. Okay, so now what I'll do is I need to access this element, okay, in your this particular function, okay. I need to know the value. For example, I type in here, I need to know this value, okay, using my, so you know, this is something called we use something called document.get element by ID, right? Same way, we will have something called references here, okay. Same way, in the case of your controlled forms, I mentioned you on that day, right? So controlled form. What is a controlled form? Can anyone answer? What is a controlled form? Exactly. So we'll be controlling it by states and we'll be binding state to each and every element. Okay. Then what is uncontrolled? Okay. So uncontrolled is nothing but it is not going to controlled by your state. Okay. So this is the way of handling your uncontrolled forms here. Okay. So in the case of uncontrolled forms, something like this, in the case of JavaScript, we will use a ID, and if we want to access them using here, okay, for example, document dot get element by ID and that particular test value, okay, and dot so where is that? So here, okay, so something like I will print the value here, okay, so console dot log off, so pure JavaScript, okay, nothing other than that. So here, whatever I type in, click me here, that value will be available, okay. So pure JavaScript, document dot get element by ID of test and dot value, you will be getting it here, okay, whenever I click that particular function here, okay. Same way, we have something called references in the case of your React, okay. So let's see what is a reference, okay. So in order to create a reference, okay, so this is a function component, right? So in the case of function component, you need to use something called React hooks. Okay, so React hooks to achieve those things. So here I am going to use a React hook called useRef. Okay, so something I told you already three React hooks, right? Use state, use effect, and use reducer. One more thing is called useRef. Okay, so what it does is it is going to give us ability to have references. Okay, so import from React. Okay, so from React, I'm going to import use ref. Okay, so you know to create a reference variable. Okay, how to create it? So basic thing here, const. This is going to be input, right? So I'll have something called input ref and call that particular thing here. Okay, so now the input variable, or sorry, a reference variable is created. Okay, which is something exactly we have something called ID and class in JavaScript, right? Same way here it is called a references here. Okay, so I'm going to assign this to my element here. Okay, so we have ID in the case of JavaScript. Here we will have something called ref. Okay, see, this is the keyword. So if you use ref and assign them to that particular ref, okay. So now once you have done it, okay, you can access them directly using input.ref here. Okay, see here now. So if I console dot log of input ref, okay, so see here now, I'm going to type in something here, click, okay, see current, and inside that I will have all the input element. That particular input element will have many properties, right? It is called for like, see here. So see each and every element inside that particular the same the DOM object of the particular input text. Okay, so everything will be available here. Okay, suppose if you want to access your value, okay, but only thing here you need to consider here is every object will be inside of current. Okay, so there is a property called current in your reference. So this is a keyword, please have it in this have it in your mind. Whenever you create a reference, all your references will be created in this particular reference variable, because you have assigned that you have created reference here. Okay, so you have given a reference here. So whenever you assign a reference to a particular element, its properties, so your input properties, right? So input text and type and whatever that you have here, okay, everything will be available inside this input ref in the property called current. Okay, so inside current here. Okay, suppose if I want to access the property, the value of this, what you need to do, input ref dot current dot value. Okay, so that's the thing. So here current dot, I will have something called value. Okay, simple. So see now, So this is exactly same as document.get element by id dot value, right? Same way here. Okay. So if I click runtime here, see, exactly similar to your same functionality. Okay. It can have values. It will have all the properties of a input element here. Okay. That's all about your references. So if you want to create references in your functional component, you need to use something called useRef. Okay. In the case of class component, you need to use something called createRef. Okay. I will show that example as well. So for now, if you want to create references, you need to create using useRef, create a variable. Okay. So you have initialized a variable. So in your return function, you can assign these references to particular variable here. For example, I am assigning it to a input ref. Okay. So whenever there is a change happening here, all the properties of your input element will be here inside your input ref. Okay, clear? Clear on this? Clear on the reference part? Is there any advantages of using that over document.get element by id? So in the case of React, we never use document.get element by id. Okay, so we will prefer only the reference. Okay, so reference is an internal implementation inside your React. Okay, so I don't think there is a difference between them, but even references we will not be using in many places. It's a very rare scenario, but you need to know the concept behind it. That's why I'm explaining here. Okay, so what is the keyword here? Ref. You need to give a property to whatever the element. It can be input, it can be button, or it can be any HTML element that you have. Okay, so ref, if you have if you assign the same ref here, okay, so whatever the properties that a button have, okay, that properties will be available inside your input ref. Okay, so that's the thing here. So now, so here comes the real-time scenario. So when we use it, okay, so you have a library. Okay, suppose you have installed a library called something for a design or whatever the thing. Okay, and you cannot access or you cannot change your code inside your library, right? Consider counter.js. Okay, this is a library. Okay, consider this is a library. Instead of importing it from here, okay, I am importing it from a package called counter, and I will be having access to this particular component. Okay, I cannot change my code here, right? Is my question right? Consider counter component is a library. Okay, so you are going to install it using something like a package. Consider there is a counter package. Okay, so if you install that particular package, you will get to use your counter component. Okay, but here there are certain scenarios like increment and decrement and reset. Okay, so you cannot access them. In that case, what you will do? So there may be a scenario for that. Can you understand my question, what I asked? Can I repeat the question or is it clear? Okay, I will ask the question again. Okay, so here in my app.js, I just imported my counter component that I wrote here. Okay, suppose, okay, so since this is your own component, if you want to do some changes, okay, like increment or decrement, if you want to have your own changes, what you will do, you can come here and modify something like keyword or whatever, like state or whatever the things. Okay, so you will do that. Suppose this particular component here, right? Consider this is coming from a library. Okay, so it's not your own code. You just install that particular library using npm. Okay, and you just use this component. Now if you want to modify the property here, can you modify it? Now my question is understanding. Okay, you cannot access them, right? So that is where your references comes into place. Okay, see here now. Here I have my counter component, right? So consider this is coming from a library and I cannot change anything here. Okay, so consider it is coming from a library called counter. Okay, you can assign a reference to that particular component here. Okay, see, const I will have something called count ref. Okay, so counter ref and something called use ref here. Okay, and I will have a reference to that particular component. Okay, so you can give reference to a component as well, something like this. Okay, if you do this, okay, so on clicking the particular button, I will print my count ref here. Okay, and current here. So I'm clicking that. I'll just doing a console of my references of our count ref. Okay, see here. So you will be amazed. See here now. So I'll refreshing. If I click on the particular button, see your entire counter component, the props, the state, the decrement function, the increment function, and the reset function that you wrote here, right? So here. So whatever that you wrote here, increment, decrement, reset, state, props, everything will be available in your own component. See, so there may be some scenarios in your application like this is the real-time scenario. Okay, so if you can't modify some libraries, okay, but if you want to change the functionality of increment here, okay, you can go over here and come to the so see, suppose here what I'll doing. So I'll show you the same scenario. Okay, so what I'll do here is I'm just incrementing the process here. Okay, suppose if you want to increment, if you want to modify this increment function, okay, you can overwrite here. So how to overwrite here? So I will just have something like this. Okay, so something like this. So once your reference is created, so what is the hierarchy? First you have created a input ref, okay, or the count ref. Then return in your return function, you just had your count ref function mentioned here, reference you created. Okay, so once it is created, okay, so what I'll do is in my use effect. Okay, so what I'll do is in my use effect. Okay, use effect will be called. I'm going to have a component mount use effect here. Okay, so here I will console it. Okay, instead of having a button. So I'll remove this for now, and I don't need my button at all. I just need my count ref here. Okay, so see here, I don't need this ref as well. So use effect and what is the hierarchy? First you have created a reference variable. Okay, so now inside your count, if you print count ref dot current, it will be empty or null. Okay, so then you have something called return function. So here you are assigning your reference variable to your counter component. Okay, so now reference is created. So once your reference is created, use effect will be called, right? So basically here in your lifecycle method, I'll show you. So basically after the return statement and everything is rendered, your use effect will be called, right? So that's what we saw in the lifecycle method. So if I have empty injection, it is something called component in mode. Okay, so now so I need to import use effect first. Okay, so now see here, I'm going to refresh my page. Okay, see in my use effect, I'm getting all the properties, increment and decrement, and everything is available now here. Okay, suppose if you want to initialize your, for example, you got a scenario. Okay, by default it should be incremented by 2, or if you want to modify your state, you can use that particular state or modify the state over here. Okay, you can do them here. Okay, for example, here I can call count ref dot current dot increment. Okay, so I'm just incrementing I'm just calling my increment function, which is inside your library called counter. Okay, see here, by default 1 is refresh. See, I'm doing refresh here. See, initialized with 1. So from another component, okay, from your own component, you are modifying the content, or you are accessing the properties of another component here. That is how it is happening, because you have created a variable called reference. Okay, so you cannot give id or class here, so that's why reference comes into place. So reference and counter ref, you can access all those properties here, like increment and decrement and whatever the thing here. Okay, so that's the scenario. So now what I'll do is, see here, now we have increment, decrement and reset button here, right? I'm going to give the same button here as well here. Okay, and this is from increment from app, and increment from app.js, and reset from app.js. Okay, so I have three buttons. Okay, here what I'll do is I need to call my increment here, right? Instead I am calling my countref dot current dot increment. Same way, decrement, same way for reset. Okay. Okay, I need to add a condition. Okay. So I will need to call in this way. So here I'll have increment and decrement and reset. Okay, so two things. So whenever I want to increment, I will call increment function, decrement function, and reset. And I call this increment and decrement function here, right? I will copy the same here and I will have it here. Okay. And here instead of set state, what I can do, I can call my increment function here, right? See, same way for decrement and same way for reset. Okay, simple. Okay, so what I have done here is, consider this is a library. It has something called increment, decrement, and reset, and three buttons to increment them. Okay, so what happens here? Oh, sorry, this is a class component, functional component. So const, I need to diff. Okay, so see here, these buttons are from that particular library, something called increment, decrement, and reset. Okay, so if I do increment, it will work. Decrement, it will work. Reset. Okay, so for example, increment, reset. Okay, I have three buttons. Okay, so these three buttons in my app component. Okay, so in my app component here, so I have increment, again increment, decrement, and reset function here. So here increment, decrement, and reset, and here I am modifying, I am calling the increment and decrement function here, right? Increment and decrement. When I click on this increment from app, I am calling the function for increment. Decrement from app, I am calling the function here. Same way for reset, I am calling the function inside counter component. Okay, so counter ref dot current dot increment. See, if I do increment here, I can do decrement here. If I can do decrement here, I can do increment here. I can reset them here. See, so basically you are accessing the properties from your another component inside your component using something called references. Okay, so we basically use it for, there will be a third party library, and if you want to modify some logics inside it, we basically use them in our application. Okay, clear on the references part? Can I get yes from everyone, or if do you guys have any questions already? So I just showed you the use ref and other things. Okay, so this is going to be inside your functional component. Okay, the same we need to, if you want to create the same thing here. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll create one more component called app class component. Okay, the same, I will just take the copy of it here. Okay, I'm just taking the copy of my app component. Okay, so here I will just import React from React library. Okay, and I don't need any other things here. And export default class app class extends React dot component. So here you need to use return here render function. I don't need these things. I just need my counter component alone. And I don't need use effect. I don't need these function either. And I'm going to have them. Okay. So basic class component. Okay. So React, using React component here. Okay. I'm just importing my counter component as well here. Okay. So increment and other things. So in my index.js, instead of app component, I will use app class. Okay. So the same thing. Okay. So instead of app component, I'm just rendering my app class component now. So now in my app class component, okay, I'm going to do the same. So how can we do that? So that is the question. Okay, so we have something called create ref. Okay, in something like we have use ref, right? So something called use ref here, right? So this is for functional component. Same if you want to use it for class component, you need to use something called create ref. Okay, so that is the thing, nothing new. Okay, so here I can come here and I need to create a property, right? Something like count ref, okay, equal to create ref. Simple, okay, a simple property here. See, count ref and create a ref, okay, and I need to access them here. Okay, how can I access? Using this, right? So this is class component, you need to use this dot count ref. Okay, simple as that. So now the same increment and decrement function I will have it here. So increment, here what I'll do, instead of like something like this, I will call this dot count ref dot current dot increment. Okay, same way for decrement, same way for reset. So here it's going to be decrement and it's going to be reset here, and decrement and reset. Simple. Okay, and here it's going to be this dot increment, this dot decrement, this dot reset. Okay, so the same code. Okay, so here you need to use something called create ref. In the case of function component, you need to use something called use ref. Okay, and this is class component, right? So this will be inside your this. Okay, this dot count ref. So assigning them here like this dot count ref. Same, I have increment, decrement, and reset function. Okay, reset button. On that, I am calling my count ref here. Okay, so counter ref, this dot ref dot increment and decrement. Okay, so now this is from your library. Increment, decrement, reset, increment, decrement, reset. If I do here, see, working as the same. If I do decrement here, reset here. Okay. Only thing is here you need to use something called create ref. Okay, and do using this dot count ref and other things. Here function component, you can directly have it as a variable. Okay, and counter ref for other things. Clear? Clear on the reference part? So this is all about your reference. So you might need them in some scenarios. Okay, very rare, but you need to know them. So what are all the keywords from your reference? Ref, and your properties will be inside current. Okay. So in the case of class component, how to create ref? You need to use something called create ref from your React library. Same in the case of function component, you need to use a React hook in order to create a reference. Okay, something called use ref. Okay. So in the earlier scenarios, again before React 16, okay. So we cannot we cannot use references inside your functional component. Okay. So that's why a React hooks comes into place called use ref, and you can access your component inside your inside your functional component as well. Okay, and you cannot create a reference for your functional component. Okay, why? What is the reason? Guys, please answer. Here I have counter component here, right? So counter component here. Okay, if I have this component as a function component, okay, so can say this is a functional component. Can I create a ref and access them? No. How can you access them? Your function doesn't have any property, right? You cannot. So in the case of class component, you will be accessing your property using this dot state, this dot increment, this dot decrement, this dot reset, and other things. In the case of functional component, if you modify this to functional component, there in your function there is no this at all, right? You cannot access those properties at all. So here you cannot create mostly references for your functional component. Okay, so have that in mind. You can access your other components using using use ref here. Okay, but you cannot create references for your functional component. That is the case here. Okay, so what else the question? Can we create a function in app and change the state of the counter? Change the state of the counter. Okay, let's see. See, So what was the question from someone asked me the question? Okay, can I create a function or more? Can I create a function in the app components here? Okay, so I am calling the increment function directly. See here, I'm calling the increment function directly, right? Okay, so I got a scenario for you. Okay, so since he asked this question, I will do this. See here now, I'm going to comment this. Okay, let it be. You have a library here in your counter component. Okay, it is incrementing by 1. Okay, instead I need to increment by 5. Okay, can I modify this slide, modify the logic here? I cannot do that here, right? But I can then use them. I can access these properties using your references. Okay, so suppose I want to modify the increment function here. Okay, so I can go over here. So count ref dot increment and over modifying the behavior. See, increment and creating a new function here. Okay, modifying the new function here and modifying completely the state now. Okay, so increment function, already there is an increment function in your counter component. I'm going to modify it. Okay, something like this, and modify the logic behind them. Like whenever there is an increment, it should be increment by 5. Okay, so now how can I do that? Just now I told you, right? So count ref dot current dot set state here. What I can do, so instead I will do this, I'll do it in this way. I'll just do object destructuring. Count ref dot, okay, here it should be. Okay, here I'll use set state and my state from count ref dot. Okay, so here set state and my count equal to my state plus 5. Okay, I just modified the increment function here. So if I do increment from what is happening here, I can do increment. Cannot read property updater of undefined at push. Why can I not use set state? Increment here app.js30. Why can I not access them? See, so object destructuring doesn't work here. Okay, so see here now. Okay, so what I have done here, I have used my counter component here. Okay, so it has increment, decrement, and reset. Okay, and I'm going to use this component behavior. I'm going to reuse this component in my application, but I don't need this logic. Okay, so modifying the count by 1 and modifying the count by -1. I don't need this functionality. Okay, so what I have done here is I have created a reference for it. Okay, so once the reference is created, so in my use effect, I am modifying the increment function. See, countref dot current dot increment. I am modifying the function, a new definition here. What is the new definition? I'm using the set state and modifying the count using whenever I do increment, it is going to increment by 5 now. Okay, so this is the logic that we implemented. See now, so if we do increment by C here, increment by 5, but the functionality is same as in your counter component here. Okay, so increment, if I do increment here as well, see, it is incrementing by 5. See the logic here. If I do decrement, it will decrement by 1 by adding it will increment by 5. Clear? You are modifying the component's behavior here. Okay. So using this also, you can access your state basically. So basically you can access complete, you have your counter components state or your counter components properties, everything in your app component now. Okay. You can do whatever you want. Okay. Only thing is you need to call like counter component.current in your things. Okay. So that is the only thing that you need to understand here. Okay. Clear? So see, I just modify the increment function definition itself directly here, okay, using the logics. Okay, clear? So you will get some scenarios, okay? So they may ask you in interview, okay? So please have them in place, okay? So now let's move on to our next topic, which is something called pure component, okay? So let's see. So what I'll do is I'm going to use here. So I know I just need counter component itself. I don't need. So now I'm going to have my counter component alone, okay, in my app.js. Okay. So I have my counter component here. So what is pure component? So that is the question. So pure component. So what is the difference between a component and pure component here is, so pure component is nothing but we have component here, right? So inside here, React will be having component here, right? Same way, there is one more class called pure component. Okay, so we can use it in this way, okay, something like this. So what is the purpose of pure component? So this is very specific to your components efficiency only. Okay, so see, let's see. So here in my render function, I will do a console. Okay, so something like render is called. Okay, so initially our render will be called, as you know. Okay, so here I do increment, render will be called. So that's what we saw. So whenever there is a state change happens, our render function will be called. Same way I do increment, decrement, reset, and other things. It will working as expected. Okay, so I have a question now. So here it's 0. Okay, and if I do reset, okay, if I do reset again, already the state value is 0. Okay, but render function is called again and again, even the value is same. So this is something called a performance issue. Okay, so not an issue. So this will reduce your performance. Okay, see, consider there is currently you have only like 4 elements inside your function here. Okay, I mean inside your render function here. Okay, so consider you have 100 lines. Okay, and already the state is 0. So if you do reset again, your render function will be called from the scratch, right? Okay, so you should not have this behavior. Okay, so that's why pure component comes into place. If you use pure component, okay, see now, if you use pure component, see now it will not be rendered because state value is already 0. If you do reset, it is going to update with 0 only, right? So count equal to 0. Okay, so it will not render again. So it is something called a performance now. So good performance. So if I do increment, then render function will be called because previous state had a different value and current state will have a different value. So if I do decrement, it will work. Suppose if I use reset, it will work. Now if I click on reset, it won't work. Okay, clear? So this is what pure component is. So now you can ask me a question. Why don't we use pure component directly, and why don't we need why do we need component? So that will be your question, right? So here I will have something called name. Okay, and it's going to be an object. Okay, so I'll have user and it's going to be name, something like groovy here. Okay, so groovy. So now I'll have one more function called change name, a function, basic name, basic function. Here I'll modify set state. Okay, and user, same user, and name equal to the same thing. Okay, so no changes at all. So I'll have one more button here, something called change name. Okay, and I'll call that. So now your state has user name equal to GUI. Okay, and when you click on the change name function, you are again updating your set state using the user with the same value. Okay, so now if I do reset, see, it won't work. Okay, if I do change name, okay, your render will work even if there is the same value in your state. Okay, even the same value in your state. Okay, but it will re-render again and again. Okay, so that is what your pure component does. Okay, your pure component doesn't check for your objects. Okay, it will just check your something like shallow copy. Okay, or you can say like it will compare only the values. Okay, so it won't change the reference or see the references. Okay, so see here now. So even if I do change name here, okay, already the state is same, no difference at all, but it is going to render again. Okay, so that's why there is a the pure component, and component does the same. Okay, in the case of your object or any other composite data types. Okay, but when you have a primitive data type 0, or you have something called string and other things, okay, it will work as expected in your pure component. Okay, so basically if you have some state, okay, and that is having something like this, like something like primitive data, okay, you can go ahead and use pure component. Okay, if you don't want to do if it has something like object, you don't need them at all, object or array or whatever. Okay, you don't need pure component. Okay, clear on the difference between component and pure component. So this is basically for your rendering purpose. Okay, so there is nothing new in the implementation. Everything is same. So only thing is, if you have some statically typed variables like numbers, strings, and other things, okay, if you try to change, already the state value has a certain value. If you try to change the value again with a different value, it will render again. If it does not have a different value, it will not render. Okay, so that is the only difference between your component and pure component. And pure component doesn't work with your composite data types like array, object. It won't work there. Okay, so that's the thing. Yeah, that's all about your pure component. Can you move on to the next topic? So, which is something called type checking or props validation. Okay, so let's see. Let's get started. So here in my index.js, okay, I'm going to pass some properties. For example, name, movie, age. I can have it in this way. Okay, something like 27. Okay, so then what else? Something called gender. Okay, so for example, you can have female here, gender, and what else? So string, number. It is going to be string again. Then I'll have boolean answer. Okay, let's let it be. Okay, so I have name, age, and gender. Okay, so 3 properties. So using these 3 properties, I'm going to display the data in my counter component. Okay, so here what I will do is, in below my change name, I will display name which is from this dot props dot name. Okay, same way here age, and I can print them using age here. Same way, what else? Gender. Okay, so gender, and it is going to be gender here. Okay, simple. So if I go here and run this, so name GUI age 27 and gender equal to female. Okay, so this is a scenario. Okay, so what is the purpose of your props type checking or property validation? Okay, so that's the thing here. So type checking is nothing but you are going to have validations to your properties. Okay, for example, you have sent name, age, gender as a property. Okay, and your counter component is going to display those values in its render function or in its component here. Okay, so as a developer, you know that your counter component is displaying name and age and gender property, and because it is displaying, it is dependent on the property now. Okay, so name, age, and gender should be passed to your counter component. Okay, if you don't pass any of these properties, okay, so if you don't pass any properties, it will be empty here. Okay, so which is something like a false thing. So you need to have a property called gender by must thing. Okay, so name, age, and gender should be available as a props to your counter component. Okay, so if without that, okay, it won't work. Okay, or it won't display it won't work correctly. Okay, so that is the question here. Okay, so you as a developer, you will do that. Okay, so in your application or in your project, there may be multiple developers or multiple teams working on them. Okay, so you created counter component, okay, and you used your properties name, age, and gender here. Okay, so whoever use your counter component should send this property called name and age and gender. Okay, so how do that particular developer know that name, age, and gender should be must to your component here? How a particular developer know that? For example, one another developer using a counter component. Okay, so it is expecting. So he cannot come to your code and check for your code logic. Okay, what else are happening here? Like properties are. So consider there is 100 lines inside your component. Okay, he cannot check each and every line and checking for the props. Okay, so that is where your prop types, okay, or type checking comes into place. Okay, so there is a package in your npm. Okay, so this is a package called prop types. Okay, so what this particular prop types does for us is, okay, it is going to, so whenever he use your component or any other developer use your component, okay, if he doesn't pass age, okay, so it will throw him a warning in the console that age property should be must inside your counter component. Okay, so it will throw some warnings. So how to do that? So that is the question here. Okay, so now let's see. Export, I will have default export here. Okay, because I need them now. So export default counter. Okay, so I'm going to install a library called prop types. Okay, so I'll share you these things. So prop types. Okay, you can use this property. Use this documentation here. Okay, so what happens here? So you need to use something called npm install prop types. In my case, I'm using yarn. Okay, so same thing. So now there are two things in your prop types or type checking. One is prop types and one is default props. So what is a prop types? So that is the question. Okay, see here now. So whenever you create a component, okay, so there will be, you need to add a property here. Okay, so here you have counter component here, right? So you have your class here, right? So here counter dot prop types. Okay, so you need to mention in this way. So prop types here. Okay, you need to add your validation. So what are all the props that it expects? For example, what is the counter component expect as property? Name. Okay, then age. Then what else? Gender. Okay, so gender. So now you can mention the type or the required and whatever the things if you want. Okay, using your prop type package. Okay, so import prop types here, and we can use it in this way. Okay, I'm just importing a package called prop types. Okay, here we can mention, okay, for example, you need your name, right? So prop types dot, we can mention like it is going to be a string and it is going to be required. Okay, so if you do this, okay, in your console it will throw you a warning if you don't send the name. Okay, or if you send any other instead of string, okay, if you send number, it will throw you an error. Okay, same way here, prop types, okay, it is going to be number, right? So number, and if you want to have them as required, is required. Okay, And there are multiple things. Okay, for example, for gender, okay, prop types dot string. Okay, so I will have it as a optional thing now. Okay, so you have given a validation that this particular component, right, it takes three properties. There should be three properties by default: name, age, and gender. Okay, you are mentioning you are giving some validations that it should be a string and it should be required. Same way, your age should be a number and it should be required. Same way, gender should be a string. Okay, and it is not required. You may send or you need not send. Okay, I will have it in this way. So now here, if I go to that particular application and I will refresh here, okay, so I need to start the application. And start. So see here, I am passing every property, so no warning here. Okay, so now if I go it here in my index.js, I remove my name thing here. Okay, see, it will throw you a warning: failed prop type. The property name is marked as required in your counter component. Okay, but its value is undefined. Why it is undefined? Because you didn't send it here, right? So that is the thing. So it will give the developer a warning here. Okay, so that the developer who used your component will come over here and check that. Okay, so there is a warning, I need to send a property. Or he can come here and check your counter components property types and check name and age, gender, everything is available or not. Okay, so that is the purpose of your prop type. Okay, some same way here, age, I'm going to pass it as a string now. Okay, something like this. Okay, so now see, it will throw me an error: invalid prop age of type string is supplied, expected a number. Okay, so same way validations are done now. Okay, so something like this. So if I do this, there won't be any warnings. Okay, so this is all about your prop types. Okay, so there are multiple things. So if you go to the documentation here, okay, so here these are all the elements. Okay, so I can show it here. So where is the documentation? Yeah, here it is. See here, prop types dot array. You can mention that this property type should be an array. It can be a boolean, it can be a function, number, object, string, symbol, node, element type instead of one of. Okay, see here now. So this is gender, right? So gender is something called female, right? Suppose if I send something like this, okay, so there should be a warning, right? So you can add those warning. Okay, so something like this string, and here there should be something called one off. Okay, so one off here. So we have something like here, right? One off. Okay? And you can it is a function, we can supply those value. So it can be male, it can be female, or it can be anything like other. Okay, so only you need to send only these type of properties. Okay, so if you send any other different things, it will throw you a warning. Okay, let's see. So if I refresh, see, invalid prop gender. Okay, so apply to your counter component. Expected one of male, female, and other. Okay, so if you send proper value, for example, if I send male here, okay, there won't be any warning here. Okay, so that is the thing. So this is how you need to add some validation so that your peer developers will understand that this component needs these properties. Okay, and this is not an something like advanced or optional thing. Okay, you need to have it placed in all the components. Okay, that is the coding standard that you need to follow in the React. Okay, so whenever you create a component, you need to have something called a prop types, and there is one more thing called default props. Okay, so you need to have these things. Okay, so whenever you create a component, have them placed. Okay, so it will make you have a good follow a good coding standard in your React. Okay, so next let's see. So we have one more thing called default props. So default props here. Again, counter dot default props. So here, what is the default props? So that is the question. Okay. So as you know, as the name suggests, okay, suppose you missed to pass anything here, okay, for your name, it will take this value. Okay. For example, I'll have test. Okay. So name equal to test. So suppose here I'm sending name property called GUI. Okay, so here, so name GUI is placed. Okay, and there is no warning because you have sent everything. Okay, suppose if you remove name GUI here, what will happen? It will show you a warning here, right? Because string and it is required, right? But now it won't be any warning because you have mentioned some default value. Okay, so if you don't send it, it will take that particular value. Okay, see here, test is been took. Okay, so that's the thing here. So default props are nothing but you are giving some default value to your properties. Okay, so name, you can give anything like name. For example, if you don't pass any property, if you pass any value, it will take that particular value like GUI. Okay, suppose if you don't pass that value, it will take the default value. Okay, test. So that's the thing. So that is the difference between your prop types and default props. Okay, try always try with your default props. Okay, always have some default values here. Okay, it will reduce some errors in your application. So for example, you might need, see here, name and age and gender, these properties are needed, right? Okay, suppose a developer may forget to send it, or he will see the warnings or what else see. Okay, but as a good thing, okay, you need to have some default values. Suppose if you don't pass any gender, okay, so don't consider name and age here. Okay, so consider you need to have gender here. Okay, so gender, if nothing is passed, okay, you can take as other. Okay, so in your form, for example, you have a form and it expects some gender to be passed here, and you haven't passed any properties to that particular form here. Okay, you can take by default other. Okay, so if you don't pass any, if you pass any value, it will have something called male. Okay, but if you don't pass any value here, okay, so if I remove this, it will take me other. Okay, other. Okay, so that is the thing. So I'll always have default values in your props here. Okay, so follow this coding standard always whenever you create a component. Okay, clear on the prop types. So if you go into the documentation here, we can find many things: element, node, number, object, whatever, everything is be available here. Okay, so please go over this documentation and it will be easy for you. You can even supply array of values and many things are here. Okay, so that is the thing. So clear on this? So now we are ready. We completed the fundamentals yesterday. Okay, so we now making our components into advanced thing. Okay, so now we should, as a developer, React developer, now you know what else, what are all happening in your component. Okay, so now you need to add some other configurations, like these are all something like advanced concepts. So adding prop types is a good coding standard. Then it is a good practice actually. So then, like references, I told you, if you use some library, you might need them in your application. Okay, so there will be for sure there will be a scenario like that. Okay, so you can use references part. Same way pure component. So if you have something like very static type, and you can reduce your applications rendering. Okay, rendering, and you can reduce them using pure component, because it is not going to render again if the state value is same before and after. Okay, so that these are some advanced things that you need to know. Okay, clear on the today's topic? Do you guys have any questions? So today it's going to be very short. Okay. Any questions on today's topic? Okay, thank you. So let's move on to the yesterday's task. So did you guys tried anything, and can anyone demo now? So we are done with today's topic. Can anyone demo? Yes. Okay. So homepage. Okay. About post. Okay. Okay. It takes some time to load. Okay. So when you click on that, so post/2. Okay. So now. Okay. Super. And go back, go forward. Okay. Good. So can you add a new thing now? So like get user, get comments and other things. Okay, you have them here itself. Okay, okay. So I thought you will display there. Okay, so not an issue. So please try. So now you have implemented routers in your application, right? That's good. Yeah, looks good now. Other than that, the features are already that you showed me yesterday, right? So that's the same thing here, right? Okay. So whose screen is this? A7. Okay.
Yeah, yes, sir. Actually, I'm unable to unmute my mic. That's why I'm not able to speak.
Okay, okay, no issues.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So any other persons? Can you guys demo now? So have you implemented routing concepts that I yesterday that I took a topic in routers, right? At least one people. Okay. I assume you guys didn't try it. Okay. Okay, no worries. So now we are into the advanced part of React, and that's why I stressed you to have them completed as soon as possible. Okay, that's not an issue. So take your time this week and have them completed before Monday. So I'll have on Monday, at least I need to see the demo of at least 10 to 15 people. Okay, please have it in your mind and please show me the demo on Monday. Okay. And tomorrow we have one more class in advanced topics. So tomorrow I'll cover them as well. So, okay. So tomorrow is the last day in React basically. Okay. So all your React concepts will be done. And Friday, I'll give you a day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I will give 3 days. So complete your all your tasks and complete all your tasks that I gave you. Okay, we'll have it a demo on Monday, and I will give you a recap of what you have done so far, like basic things like state props and form handling and Axios and those calls. Okay, so I will give you a recap on Monday. Okay, and we have some demo session as well on that day. Okay. So please be prepared for that. So tomorrow will be your last class in React, and yeah, please do complete them as well. So I need to share you something. So it's batch. It's okay. Here it is. I need to show you here. So we already saw the Zen portal task, right? Zen portal task 1. Okay. And this is going to be your Zen portal task 2. Okay. So we'll see it. Let it load. So this should be a Zen portal task 2. Okay. So have some sample data in your application or sample data in your array. Okay. Just map them and show it in this particular UI here. Okay. And you have something called cart button here, right? Here. Okay. So what you do is whenever you use add to cart, okay. So once the add to cart is done, you need to remove the option here. Like it should be like what now it's add to cart. So when once you added it, that should be like remove from the cart. Okay. And your count should be increased in your cart here as well. Okay. So that is the thing. So you need to display all the data here with using map. Okay. Use the same design. So if you go to the free download page here, okay, it will download you the code. Okay. So with respect to your bootstrap design and other things. Okay. So here, just have some sample data and have the add to cart functionality here. And you can have displayed here something like cards. Okay. have some sample data, and you need to have something called add to cart button. Whenever you click on add to cart button, it should be added to your cart here. Okay. And what else? It should be, there should be a remove cart button here. Okay. So when you click on remove cart, and obviously here it should be removed from your cart as well. Okay. I think that's your second task in Zen portal. I'm not sure whether it is uploaded. Please check with your student coordinator. So there might be, it might be uploaded in your Zen portal. Okay. So this is your officially, okay, uploaded. Okay. So officially this is your task. Okay. And here, this is the task that I need personally. Okay. So I need you guys to complete these things. Okay. So this will be very helpful. Okay. So there will be a flow for you. Okay. So we'll start with front end. We'll continue the same application, and we'll create, we'll have communication with your database, and we'll have it in the Node.js part. We will create APIs, and we will use the same application throughout the end of your Node.js. Okay. So that is the thing. So please have your task completed this. Okay. So there is 3 days time for you. Okay. So Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We will see. Please demo at least 15 people, 10 to 15 people on Monday. Okay. That would be really helpful. And that is the credit that you give me. Okay. So, and if you guys have any questions or I will give you a recap on that day as well. Okay. So yes. So tomorrow we'll be covering one more topic, and which is something called context, and one more topic we have. Okay. So I'll cover them as well tomorrow. And once it is done, your React is completed, and yeah, that's it. And today, so this is advanced concept. So if you want to use some, okay, your task is you already have your task here ready, right? So until then, okay. So add type checking to your already developed application. Add type checking. So in some places you may need to use pure component. Try them as well. Okay. And there is no task with respect to reference. You just know them. Okay. So that is not mandatory. So try using pure component. So if there is a form that is going to have, I think it is a post component, right? Post. Okay, so there you can use, try using the pure component. It will work as expected in your post form. Okay, so use them. So that is the task for you today. Okay, so what I missed. So prop types and other things I will give you everything now. Let's share you this. Then I have to share you the code, right? So app class counter app. I'll give you these files. Have it as a reference. Again, don't copy them. Have it as only for the reference part. So then the feedback comes here. Okay, and try completing this task. Okay, so it might have uploaded in your Zen portal. So that's what some people said. Okay, so it will be uploaded. And yes, that's it for today's session. We will have our last class tomorrow. Okay, thank you guys, and see you tomorrow. Have a great rest of the day. Bye bye.